My name is Adam. For years, I believed I had the perfect life. I had a good job, a nice house, and a beautiful wife named Sarah. We had been married for 6 years. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. I loved her more than anything in the world. I trusted her with my heart, my future, and even my family's money. Sarah was smart, charming, and always had a smile on her face. She was the kind of woman everyone liked. She made people feel comfortable, and she always knew the right things to say. At home, she acted like a loving wife. She cooked dinner, asked me about my day, and gave me a warm hug every night. I truly believed she cared. We were saving money to start a family. My parents had given us a large amount of money as a gift, money that was meant to help us buy a bigger house and prepare for children. I trusted Sarah with it. She handled most of the finances, and I never thought she would do anything wrong. Next door to us lived a man named Jake. He was our neighbor for 3 years. Jake was friendly, always offering to help with small things like carrying groceries or fixing a broken light. Sarah said he was just a kind guy. I didn't think much about it. I was busy with work, and I thought our marriage was strong. Looking back now, I realized there were small signs. Sarah started spending more time on her phone. Sometimes she smiled when texting, but when I asked who it was, she said, "Just a friend." She started going out more, shopping, meeting old friends, or going for walks alone. I noticed it, but I didn't want to believe something was wrong. I was blind. I was in love. I thought our future was bright, but I had no idea that behind her smile, Sarah was hiding a terrible secret, one that would break my heart, destroy my trust, and take everything from me. And worst of all, it was happening right under my nose. After a few months, small things started to feel different in our marriage. At first, I thought I was just imagining it. Sarah was still smiling, still acting sweet, but something was off. It's hard to explain, but I felt a change in the air. She started coming home late from her walks. Sometimes she would say she met an old friend for coffee. Other times, she said she needed some me time. I didn't question her much. I trusted her, but a small voice in my head started to whisper, something isn't right. One day, I opened our bank account to check on our savings. We had a joint account. Both of us could see and use the money. I noticed a few strange withdrawals. A few $100s here, 1,000 there. I didn't remember us spending that much. When I asked Sarah, she smiled and said, "Oh, just a few things I needed. I'll write it down later." Later never came. Weeks passed, and I saw more money disappearing. I started to worry. That money was for my family. It was supposed to help us build a better future, buy a house, start a family, maybe even open a small business. It wasn't meant to be thrown away on shopping or unknown expenses. One evening, I came home early from work. I was tired and wanted to surprise Sarah by making dinner. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Jake, the neighbor, standing near our front door. He was holding something, and he looked nervous. When he saw me, he quickly said hi and walked away. Sarah opened the door a few seconds later. She looked surprised to see me. "Oh, you're home early," she said with a fake smile. I asked what Jake was doing. She shrugged and said, "He was just helping me carry a box inside." I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me something was wrong. From that day on, I started paying more attention. She changed her phone password, something she had never done before. She used to leave her phone lying around, but now she kept it close to her all the time. When I asked to use it, even for something simple, she'd say, "Just use your own." She also stopped being affectionate. We used to sit close and talk for hours. Now, she barely touched me. When I tried to hold her hand or kiss her, she'd pull away and say she was tired or not feeling well. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. Sarah wasn't in bed. I walked to the living room and found her on the couch, texting. When she saw me, she jumped a little and quickly put the phone down. "Couldn't sleep," she said, avoiding my eyes. That was the moment I knew she was hiding something. I still didn't want to believe it was an affair. I told myself, maybe she's stressed, maybe she needs space, maybe I'm overthinking. But deep down, I felt something cold growing inside me, doubt. I stopped sleeping well. I started watching her closely. Every smile she gave me felt fake. Every excuse sounded like a lie. I tried to ask her what was wrong, but she always said, "Nothing. Everything's fine." But I knew it wasn't fine. Something was happening behind my back, and I was going to find out what it was. I couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the coldness, the strange looks between Sarah and Jake. It was eating me alive. Every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself, is my wife cheating on me? Is she really doing this? I needed to know the truth, not just guesses, not just feelings, real proof. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Mark. He was professional, quiet, and very good at his job. I gave him Sarah's schedule, our address, and a few details about the neighbor, Jake. He nodded and said, "I'll get you answers in a few days." Those few days felt like a lifetime. While I waited, I acted normal. I smiled at Sarah, kissed her good morning, and even brought her flowers once. She smiled too, but it felt empty, like she was pretending, just like me. I kept my mask on and waited for the truth to come knocking. And it did. Mark called me on a Wednesday afternoon. "We need to meet in person," he said. My heart dropped. I drove to his office, my hands shaking on the wheel. He didn't speak much. He just handed me a folder. Inside were pictures, messages, and location logs. The pictures were clear. Sarah and Jake kissing in his car, holding hands at a park, sitting at a small restaurant far away from town, laughing together like a couple in love. The messages were worse. She wrote things like, "I wish I could be with you every night. He's too boring. You're everything I need. Don't worry. He doesn't suspect a thing." I sat there, staring at the words, feeling like my heart had been stabbed. Sarah had been cheating on me for over a year. Not only that, she had been spending my family's money on their secret dates, expensive hotels, fancy meals, gifts for him. I felt sick, but the worst was still to come. At the bottom of the file, there was a note from Mark. "There are signs she may be pregnant. She went to a private clinic last week. I'm still confirming details." I couldn't believe it. Pregnant? I rushed home and tried to stay calm. Sarah was in the kitchen. I looked at her and asked, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" She smiled nervously. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "Are you pregnant?" Her face changed. She looked shocked, scared, and then she smiled. "I was going to tell you." "Yes, I just found out." She walked over and tried to hug me. I let her, but in my mind I was screaming, "Is it mine?" I didn't say anything else that night. I told her I was happy, that I needed some time to think. She seemed relieved, but I wasn't. I was burning inside. The next day, I went to the same clinic Mark had found. I said I was a husband and asked about the visit. After a bit of talking, the nurse confirmed it. Sarah had come in last week. She had an early pregnancy test, but she came alone. I went home and smiled at her like everything was okay. I knew I had to wait. I couldn't act too soon. I needed more proof. So I waited until the baby was born. Sarah was glowing. She acted sweet again like the old days. She even cried during the birth and held my hand. The doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, Dad." But in my heart, I didn't feel joy. I felt cold. A few days later, I took a strand of the baby's hair and sent it in for a paternity test. 2 weeks passed. I got the results in a white envelope. I was not the father. I sat in my car for hours, staring at that one sentence. The baby is not mine. That was it. The final nail in the coffin. My wife had lied, cheated, stolen my money, and now given birth to another man's child. While pretending I was a father, I could have screamed. I could have destroyed everything. But I didn't. I smiled, because now I had everything I needed for revenge. After I read the paternity test results, I sat alone in my car, staring at the paper in my hands. The words were clear. Result: excluded. You are not the biological father. That one line hit me harder than anything in my life. I had been living a lie. The baby my wife had called ours was actually Jake's. Our neighbor, the man who had smiled at me, waved at me, and even joked with me while he was sleeping with my wife behind my back. I felt angry, hurt, broken, but I didn't cry. Instead, I felt something else. Cold, focused, ready. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make her regret everything. That night, I went home and looked at Sarah holding the baby in her arms. She smiled at me and said, "She has your eyes?" I nodded and smiled back. Yeah, maybe. Every day, I played the role of the loving husband. I changed diapers, made dinner, helped around the house. Sarah believed everything was fine again. She thought she had gotten away with it. But while she was sleeping, I was planning. First, I opened a secret bank account. I slowly moved the little money we had left into it. I also spoke to a lawyer. I told him everything. The cheating, the stolen money, the paternity test. He helped me prepare the divorce papers and gave me advice on protecting myself legally. I also printed every piece of evidence I had. The private investigator's photos, screenshots of her messages with Jake, the paternity test, bank statements showing the missing money. I kept it all in a folder hidden under my car seat. Then I waited. I wanted the perfect moment. Over the next few weeks, I watched Sarah closely. She texted Jake less, probably because of the baby, but I could tell they were still in touch. One time, she forgot to lock her phone. I saw a message from Jake. "She's beautiful. I wish I could hold her. I miss you." Sarah replied, "Soon. I promise. Just give it some time." So, she was still lying to me, still pretending. That's when I decided the day, our wedding anniversary. Sarah planned a small dinner at home. She made my favorite dish and wore the same dress she wore on our first date. She looked happy. She thought I was clueless. That made her feel safe. Halfway through dinner, I put my fork down and looked at her. "I have a gift for you," I said. Her eyes lit up. "Really? What is it?" I handed her the folder. At first, she looked confused. Then, as she flipped through the photos and papers, her face went pale. She tried to speak, but no words came out. I stayed silent and watched her fall apart. She looked up at me with wide eyes. You knew?" I nodded. "I've known for months." She started crying. "Please, I'm sorry. I made a mistake." I shook my head. "No, Sarah, a mistake is forgetting to lock the door. What you did was a choice. You chose to lie, steal, cheat, and bring another man's child into this house." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "It's over," I said calmly. "The papers are ready. You can keep your lies. I'm taking my life back." I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out the door. She screamed my name, begging me to come back. But I didn't, because now I had nothing left to give her. Not love, not trust, not even hate. After I left the house that night, I sat in my car for a long time. I stared at the dark road ahead, thinking about everything I had been through. My heart didn't feel broken anymore. It felt cold. Something inside me had changed. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to scream. I wanted only one thing: revenge. Sarah had destroyed my trust, stolen from me, and lied every single day. She had used my family's money to build a fake life with another man. She had even tried to pass his child off as mine. And worst of all, she thought she could get away with it. She had no idea what was coming. Step 1, protect myself. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer again. I told him everything, how I found out, the test results, and her reaction. He helped me file for divorce, and we made sure that I would not pay child support, since the child wasn't mine. I would not be responsible for any debt she made using my name. She would have no claim to my savings, as most of the money had come from my family. I also gathered all the legal documents and made digital copies. I stored everything safely, so she couldn't destroy or change anything later. Step 2, take back control. Sarah still lived in the house. It was my family's house, and her name wasn't on it. Legally, I could remove her, but I didn't want to do it suddenly. That would be too easy for her. Instead, I made her think everything was still under control. I told her I needed time to think. I visited the house sometimes and acted calm. I even held the baby, though it broke my heart to know she wasn't mine. Sarah began to feel hopeful again. She thought I might forgive her. Let her believe that. That was part of the plan. While she relaxed, I made quiet moves behind her back. I transferred the last bit of money from our joint account into my private one, changed all my passwords, removed her access to my cards, and stopped using any shared services. Warned my job and bank about possible fraud, in case she tried anything. The day had finally come. I had been planning this moment for weeks. Every step had been careful, slow, and cold. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Not just sadness, shock, shame, and loss. I wanted her world to fall apart the way she had destroyed mine. And I wanted her to know it was me who did it. I chose the perfect time, our wedding anniversary. She thought I had forgiven her. She believed my silence meant everything was okay again. She didn't know that I had already filed for divorce, locked her out of the accounts, and gathered every piece of proof I needed. Sarah planned a small party. Nothing big, just a few close friends and neighbors, including Jake. She wanted to show everyone that we were healing and starting fresh. I agreed to the idea. I even helped her decorate the house. I wore my best suit, smiled at everyone, and shook hands like a gentleman. Deep inside, my heart was pounding like a drum, not with fear, but with calm fury. I had placed a small folder on the bookshelf in the living room, where everyone could see it. Inside were printed copies of the private investigator's photos of Sarah and Jake kissing, the text messages between them, the paternity test proving I wasn't the father, the bank statements showing the money she had stolen, and on the front of the folder, in bold letters, I had written, "Happy anniversary, Sarah. The truth always comes out." The explosion. Everyone was laughing, chatting, and enjoying drinks. Sarah looked beautiful that night, just like the woman I once loved. But her beauty meant nothing to me anymore. It was just a mask, and I was about to rip it off. I stood up and tapped my glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming," I said with a smile. "It means a lot to Sarah and me. But before we continue, I have something very important to share. A special gift from my wife." Sarah smiled proudly, not knowing what was coming. I walked to the bookshelf, picked up the folder, and handed it to her. "Go ahead," I said. "Read out loud." She looked confused, but opened the folder. The first page was a photo of her kissing Jake in his car. She froze. Everyone stared. Then she turned the page. More photos. Her hand started to shake. She flipped again. Messages like, "He doesn't suspect a thing," and "I wish I was with you instead." Gasps filled the room. One of her friends covered her mouth. Jake tried to stand, but I stopped with a look. And then came the final pages, the paternity test, and a note from me. "You lied. You cheated. You stole from me. And you thought I'd never find out." Sarah's face went white. Her eyes filled with tears. "Adam, please," she whispered. "Let me explain." "No," I said coldly. "You had a year to explain. You chose lies." I turned to the guests. For those who didn't know, Sarah has been cheating on me with our neighbor, Jake, for over a year. She used the money my family gave us to take him on trips, buy him gifts, and build a life behind my back. She also tried to trick me into raising his child as my own. Everyone was silent. Jake tried to speak. "Look, man, this wasn't—" "Don't," I interrupted. "You smiled at me while sleeping with my wife. I don't want your voice in my house." I turned back to Sarah. "You no longer live here. The divorce papers are on the kitchen table. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You get nothing." She collapsed into a chair, crying loudly, but I felt nothing. The aftermath. I left the room and walked outside. Some people followed me, trying to comfort me, but I didn't need it. I wasn't sad anymore. I was free. Later that night, I got a message from Sarah. "Please don't do this. I still love you." I blocked her. Jake moved away within a week. No one looked at him the same anymore. Sarah lost everything: her marriage, her reputation, her comfortable life. She had to move back with her parents, with a baby that wasn't mine, and a future full of regret. The end of her story, the start of mine. I never looked back. I sold the house, moved to another city, and started fresh. I met new people. I laughed again. It took time, but I healed. I didn't need to scream or break things. I didn't need revenge through violence or hate. I destroyed her the same way she tried to destroy me. Quietly, smartly, and completely. And the best part? She never saw it coming. After the confrontation, everything changed. The truth had finally come out, and there was no going back. Sarah's perfect little world fell apart in a single night. One moment she was smiling, surrounded by friends, and the next she was sitting in silence, exposed in front of everyone. I left the house that evening without looking back. The next day, Sarah tried calling me, over and over again. She sent messages begging me to meet her, to talk. She said she was sorry, that she had made a mistake, and that she still loved me. But I didn't reply. I had already made my decision. She had destroyed something that could never be fixed. My trust. Sarah's life fell apart. News spreads fast in quiet neighborhoods. Within days, everyone knew what had happened. People who once smiled at Sarah in the street now avoided her. The same friends who used to visit stopped coming around. She became the topic of whispers and pity. Jake moved out a few days later. He didn't even say goodbye. I heard from a neighbor that he had quit his job and left town. Maybe he felt guilty. Maybe he was just a coward. Either way, I didn't care. He was gone, and that was enough for me. Sarah, now alone with a baby that wasn't mine, had no choice but to move in with her parents. She had no job, no money, and no support. The child she thought would fix everything became her only responsibility, a constant reminder of the life she tried to build on lies. She had lost her marriage, her comfort, her fake happiness, and it was all her fault. And me? I moved on. I sold the house. It had too many memories, good and bad, and I didn't want to live in the shadow of my past. I moved to a new city, started a new job, and slowly began building a life for myself again. At first, it was hard. Some days I felt empty. Some nights I couldn't sleep. But I didn't let it break me. I reminded myself that the worst was over, and I had survived it. I focused on myself, my peace, my healing, and little by little, I felt whole again. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did, if it was too harsh. But the truth is, no, I don't regret anything. Sarah made her choices. She chose to lie. She chose to cheat. She chose to steal from someone who loved her more than anything. And in return, I made my choice to take back control of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I used the truth as my weapon, and that was more powerful than anything else. It's been over a year since everything happened. Sometimes when I look back, it still feels unreal, like a bad dream I finally woke up from. But it was all real. The lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the revenge. I used to think my life was over when I found out the truth, that I would never feel happiness again. But I was wrong. The truth didn't destroy me. It freed me. Sarah was a chapter in my life. A long, painful one. But chapters end and new ones begin. Today, I live in a small apartment in a new city. It's quiet, peaceful, and completely mine. I wake up without fear. I eat in silence, but it's peaceful, not lonely. I've made new friends. I've even started dating again, slowly, carefully. This time, I trust myself more than I trust anyone else. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not trying to forget what happened. I'm just learning how to live again. People often think revenge is about hurting the person who hurt you. But to me, real revenge was taking back control, showing strength, and walking away without losing myself. Sarah expected me to scream, to beg, to fall apart. Instead, I smiled, stood tall, and let the truth speak for itself. She lost everything. I lost her, but I gained something far more important: self-respect. So, if you're reading this and you've been betrayed, just remember, you don't need to destroy someone to win. Sometimes, The best revenge is healing, moving on, and living a life so full, so peaceful, that your silence is louder than any scream. Because in the end, I didn't just survive her betrayal. I became stronger because of it.